Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Quarantending. I'm Beau du Bois, Bar and Spirits Director at Puesto, and when I'm not drinking margaritas, I like to sit by my booze and have a martini. So tonight I thought we would cover that cocktail, one of the most recognizable in the canon, as well as sometimes the most intimidating. So what I thought we would do for this very special martini episode is bring by some martini experts and people that I truly admire via Zoom. First, starting off with Ryan Wainwright from Bombay Sapphire, as well as Selena Donovan from Grey Goose Vodka, and then Courtney Lane over in Miami with Noli Pratt Vermouth. And last but not least, a couple of bartenders from LA, Claire Ward from the Hippo, and David Purcell, the bar director at the Nomad Hotel in Los Angeles. So, if you've been ordering martinis like James Bond, shaken, not stirred, and you have absolutely no idea what that means, that's okay, we're gonna talk about it. If you don't even remember what vermouth tastes like or how it's supposed to be stored, we're gonna cover that. And lastly, if your standard martini order is a Grey Goose straight up with olives, and you can't figure out why the bartender keeps putting vermouth in it, we're gonna cover that as well. So without further ado, come along with my friends, the martini experts, as well as yours truly, and let's get to the bottom of the martini.
Okay, all right. For those of you who are tuning in, my name is Beau du Bois. I'm the Bar and Spirits Director at Puesto, and tonight I've got a very, very special Zoom episode bringing martinis and the dark taboos of martinis to you, to your houses, to your living rooms, to your bathrooms. If you drink martinis in there, that's totally fine. Nobody's here to judge you. And tonight I'm joined by some of my top industry friends, beloved friends, professionals who've been doing this for a while and know their way around the martini. And so what we're going to be doing this evening is walking you through our favorite iteration of a classic martini, a combination of either gin, Bombay Sapphire, or Grey Goose, some vodka, with some dry vermouth from Noli Pratt. So let's begin. Let's go around really fast and introduce everyone. And I'm going to hand it off really fast to Selena in Los Angeles, our West Coast Grey Goose ambassador. Selena.
Hi.
And then as well, Dave Purcell, also from Los Angeles, the bar director at the Nomad Hotel in Los Angeles.
I'm that one.
That's Dave. All right, and then all the way before we leave LA, let's say hi to Claire, bar director at Hippo. Hi, Claire.
Bye.
Thanks for joining. And then of course, going from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast in Miami, both Lane from Noli Pratt as well as Ryan Wainwright from Bombay Sapphire. Hi, Lane.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. Thank you for staying up late with us.
My pleasure.
Ryan, you still there? Did we lose you?
Are you sleeping?
I was just dreaming that I was gone, but no, I'm still here.
Oh, if you're just now enjoying the personality charm of Ryan Wainwright, that was it in a nutshell. Ryan, try to stay awake long enough. We're gonna get to you eventually, okay?
I'll do my best.
All right. So let's go around really fast. If anybody, I don't want to put anybody on the spot too much, but let's talk about some of the taboos of martini culture. How we're ordering martinis, how we're making martinis, we're shaking or we're stirring, or the glassware, how the guest is ordering martinis. Let's explore all those dark corners so that we can really give everybody who's watching a chance to kind of understand how to get the best martini in the world, which is the one that they want. Okay. I'm going to pass it along real fast to Dave Purcell from the Nomad in Los Angeles. Dave, do you want to talk about any taboos or misconceptions with the martini?
Bo, you got a good question there. One of the things that we often encounter with people ordering martinis is they oftentimes are parroting things back that they hear someone say on TV without kind of understanding the full what all those terms actually mean. So when someone is ordering something straight up, that means it's in a glass like this. It means it's stemmed. The reason why I prefer a martini in a stemmed glass is so that my hands don't heat up the liquid after it's brought to temperature. So essentially anybody's martini is correct for them if that's the way they like it. But just making sure that they have the full definition of what it is that they're asking for. Because oftentimes people will say martini and they just mean cocktail, like a cucumber martini.
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, like, understanding that the martini is a cocktail in the cocktail world, but not all cocktails are martinis.
I also agree with Dave, where it's like, if it's the right cocktail for you, it's the right cocktail for you. And that's sort of the lens that we've adopted at Grey Goose with the martini, where we don't really try to force our preferred ratios on people, but we like to introduce them to the options available within the martini universe.
Excellent. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm gonna pass it over to Lane to talk about a little bit about in terms of like martini ordering terminology, dry versus extra dry versus bone dry, and all those things, just so we can kind of shine a spotlight on what those words actually mean and what maybe the guest thinks they mean or knows that they mean. Over to you, Lane.
Sure. This is a great question, one that I even got wrong as a bartender, as a young bartender, starting out, thinking extra dry meant extra vermouth, and someone asking me for an extra dry martini and just throwing a ton in there, and it was in fact soaking wet. So yeah, it's just as simple as that. Dry is less, wet is more. Soaking wet or filthy is with a lot. Filthy can also mean combining both vermouth and olive brine. It's really whatever you choose, but as a bartender, you need to know the terminology and to be able to educate your guest in a nice and educational way that, isn't demeaning in any way. And also just giving them, like you said, the cocktail they want.
Variety. But yeah, we always train our staff. They get a list of questions, and it's get the most information from the customer, because we really want to make sure they get what's going to make them happy and what's going to make you feel. There's nothing like having a martini exactly how you want it and getting it and taking it to being like, that is everything I needed right now. So I think just like you said, not making anyone feel stupid,
Lastly, let's pass it over to Ryan, just to make sure, one, he's awake, and two, Ryan, can you speak to kind of what drew you to the martini?
Honestly, Frank Sinatra. For me, I grew up idolizing him, and he was always either with a glass of whiskey or a martini, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have this drink. That's the thing about martinis, is it really is that democratic drink, right? Like, everybody's got a story, everybody's got a reason, and it's an emotional fairy tale. I think it's one of the few drinks that people have really connectivity to.
Yeah, and so with this Zoom call and an episode that we'll be adding to Quarantending on Puesto's Instagram as well as our YouTube, this is meant for you to really start to learn kind of the secrets and the tricks and the hacks as to getting the martini that you want. So I'm thirsty, and Ziggy's here, so I figure it's a good time to get started.
What up, dude?
Ziggy.
Yeah. Oh God, and he almost fell off the counter. Okay, so I'm going to start, just to be very transparent. I'm going to make what I consider to be a classic gin martini using Bombay Sapphire, as well as Noli Pratt's dry vermouth. And what I'm going to do is what's referred to as a classic 2-to-1 ratio, meaning 2 ounces of Bombay Sapphire, and then 1 full ounce of Noli Pratt. And then I'm going to garnish it with some olives.
Big misconception I feel like people have, especially young bartenders. They just throw it up on the back bar like it's a spirit. But you have to consider it what it is. It's made from wine. The base of it is wine. So imagine opening up a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, having a glass, and then leaving it on the counter for 2 weeks and then going back for another swig. It's not going to taste as good.
But I'm going to finish my martini with 3 Castelvetrano olives and give you guys all a cheers very soon. So who's next?
The vodka girl.
Lena. All right, let's see that vodka martini.
All right. Well, before I go into the martini that I want to make for you, as I said earlier, at Grey Goose, we sort of believe that you can have your martini however you like it. Like, it's your drink. You're the one enjoying it. Like, do your thing. Drink it how you want it. But we do think that Grey Goose is an amazing addition and base spirit to a martini because of its production process. So we make Grey Goose a little bit differently than other vodkas in the market are made, meaning we control 100% of our production. So from the wheat fields that we select in Picardy, France, which is a little bit north of Paris and more commonly referred to as the breadbasket of France, to the facility that we have that makes Grey Goose 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. We're controlling everything. So a quick nutshell description of how we do make Grey Goose is we take that Picardy wheat. It is known as the breadbasket of France because it has the highest quality bread making wheat, and we use the highest classification of that wheat for Grey Goose. Our distillery is in the middle of this region, so we control 100% of the process of the distillery, meaning we mill our own wheat, we then ferment that mash, and we distill it one time through a custom distillation system, and then we're ready to blend it. Our blending facility is in Cognac because of the high limestone content. The water in the Cognac soil is so pure and so amazing. So we found a single source aquifer that we built our blending facility on top of, and we extract that pure spring water right out of the ground, and within 30 minutes, it's blended with our distillate into a bottle of Grey Goose. So we're really proud of that, and we do think it sets us apart, especially in a cocktail like a martini. And the way that we like to enjoy it at Grey Goose is a 5-to-1 ratio. So 2.5 ounces of Grey Goose to 1/2 ounce of Noli Prat. And Noli Prat is our preferred vermouth for these cocktails because we love the French botanicals mixing with our French wheat. So I also want to point out that as much as I love the 5-to-1 Grey Goose martini, I also definitely love a dirty shaken martini, which Claire will show us later. And I love, for like an aperitif, like first drink of the day, a 50-50 martini, which Lane is also going to. Holla. You guys, this is like kind of janky, but we're going to make it work, you know?
It's called quarantine, baby.
Yeah, quarantine's kind of janky.
Shirt during it. And I normally like to garnish with a lemon peel and an olive. I don't think a lady should have to choose between an olive and a twist. But at my house, I only had grapefruit. So we're getting wild, you guys. And a little grapefruit twist for this martini today. All right. Cheers, Beau.
All right. Cheers.
No, I'm going to go. I'm thirsty.
Okay, yeah. Let's get out of the way of Ryan.
I've never
wait, you look undernourished, Ryan. Let's go West Coast versus East Coast, and we'll just keep going back and forth. Ryan, over to you.
All right, I'm gonna tilt my screen a little bit. There we go. All right. So I'm gonna start because I'm thirsty, like I said, and I don't really care about these rules too much. Obviously, I'm doing mine with Bombay Sapphire. We love making drinks, martini specifically with Bombay Sapphire, and I'm doing equal parts. I took that Noilly Prat original French dry and I threw a basket of strawberries in it and let it sit overnight in my fridge. Then I froze the strawberries to make a handy dandy garnish here that are totally soaked in Noilly Prat, and I pretty much love it. It's kind of the best thing ever. I did a version of this a couple days ago for my grandma's 100-and-something birthday, and yeah, I'm into it. So that's what I'm doing. So a little bit about Bombay and why the martini is dope. I'm gonna pour into this nice potted or flower vase here my excess water. That's how that works.
Wow.
So Bombay, I think makes an amazing martini, and I'm using my fingers because I think I'm Gucci. Bombay makes an amazing martini gin for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest ones is our production style. Just like Grey Goose, we're really proud of how we make the gin. And Beau, I know you waxed poetic about this just not that long ago, but because our botanicals are vapor distilled, we're actually getting a lot of those high notes and those bright notes. And for me, that's what pairs so perfectly with this vermouth. Like the original French dry, I think, is one of the most fantastic vermouths out there. And with that subtle hint, top note of strawberry, and then all the botanicals that are vapor distilled in Bombay, you get all the brightness of the juniper, the citrus, the coriander, all those things really come alive. And for me, I think it's delicious. I mean, it's always nice to have one of those brighter martinis, you know, which is why those twists come in handy all the time. And yeah, I'm just kind of playing around with that.
Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Ryan's got a cocktail. It's coming along.
This is when we're allowed to cheers, yeah.
Yeah, he got his.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much. Just try to stay awake a little bit longer. We're going to stay on the East Coast and pass it over to Lane from Noli Pratt. Lane, tell us, how long have you been working with Noli Pratt?
So very recently, actually. So I started with Bacardi 2 years ago as a part-time brand specialist for Saint Germain. I was bartending at both Employees Only in Miami as well as Broken Shaker when I was working for Saint Germain. And then last year I took on a full-time regional Southeast role with the brand up until even now. And I'm doing Noli Pratt in addition for the US. So I'm really excited. We're kind of using our L'Equipe to just really bring it to the on-premise and show love and, education to the trade. So yeah, I actually just got back from Marseille right before the world kind of shut down. I got in just in the spick of time when the borders were closing. And Marseille is beautiful. I know probably some of you here have gone. It's a beautiful fishing village in the south of France. I kind of went on its off season, so it was a little eerie. The town was dead, and I feel like I had it all to myself, which was wonderful with Philippe. But yeah, with that being said, my favorite martini is just whatever I depend on. Today I'm going to make you a 50-50 and kind of explain why, how you like it. So I'm going to do a 50-50 today. So I'm going to do 1.5 of Grey Goose, and then 1.5 of the original dry. So the way that we make Noli Pratt is just such a labor of love, and it's so beautiful and unique to vermouths in general. So we get all of our wines from the south of France. We use 3 wines in the original dry. We use a Picpoul, a Claret, and a Mistel, sorry. And so what we do is once it comes to Maison Noli Pratt, as well as the original dry, we take it, we fortify it with alcohol to bring it up to 16%, and then we split it in half and do some to 18%. This is because the way that we age the vermouth is called enclos. It's out in the open, and so it basically goes through 1 year of a summer and winter with all the elements of the south of France, the Mediterranean Ocean right there. So we're going to add some ice in here and just stir it up. You can shake it if you like. It's really up to you. I do prefer to shake my vodka martinis. And even if I do, like I said, with olive brine, I still like to put vermouth in wine. That's how we did it at EO, and I just think it's delicious. Give me a nice stir.
Vermouth and everything.
As I stir, I'm going to grab my chilled glass, which is in my refrigerator where your vermouth belongs.
Hey,
keep your vermouth in the fridge. If you're watching, the vermouth goes in the fridge.
Fridge.
I'm just going to garnish that with a lemon zest. You can discard or put it in. And cheers.
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 Thank you, Lane. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
And let's get with Dave Purcell, his preferred martini. Again, director at the Nomad Hotel, just a little place in LA, tiny little speakeasy of a joint. Dave, yeah, it's like a little mom and pop operation.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build 2 martinis that are relatively similar, but just have a little bit of a different accent at the end. And these are 2 that I typically order kind of anywhere, just because most places have all of the ingredients on hand. So what we're going to do is the spec that I like for a martini is just a little bit heavier on the gin than the vermouth. So like a 2.5 ounce pour of gin to 1 ounce vermouth, or if you prefer, you can do 3/4 ounces of vermouth to 2 ounces. So I'm going to build in with 1.5 ounces of Noli Extra Dry. One of the things that I really like about the combination of these 2 products specifically is, Ryan, as you were saying, the lightness of the Bombay and the aromatics kind of hitting the top notes is one of the reasons why I like the Sapphire. But with the Noli Extra Dry, I really like a lot of vermouths. I feel like are kind of all over the place with their acidity and their balance, and this one is just like at the right midpoint of what that is, and I feel like that really that plays nicely in the cocktail. So anyways, there's as I said, there's 2 drinks being in here. One of the things that I'll just go into kind of the technical stuff since you guys all know more about the products. I like my martini stirred. Glass is a natural insulator, so it does well to keep the temperature and the ice all playing nicely in here, and an easier way of controlling the dilution. That's not saying that you can't do all that with shaking anything. But I always like to have the ice kind of above the wash line in there. There's a property in ice called adhesion, where the surface area of each cube is always expelling water based on its temperature and its dilution. And the more ice you have in here and the larger the ice cubes, the less surface area is actually in contact with the liquid that's in there. So it is diluting less and keeping the temperature in the insulator. So the bigger the ice cube and the more you have in there, the easier it is for you to control what's going on. So that would be one of my only reasons why I prefer the stirred. Also,
I'm going to interject really fast. I just want to take this moment to be in all serious. Dave, I'm so proud of you. Wow. Continue.
My question was going to be, Dave, do you have fancy ice at home?
I have a 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch rubber mold that I have just for me. But also because they always say that, like, kind of the rule of thumb is you shake when you need to emulsify ingredients and you stir when you're using everything that's like kind of closer to the spirit. And I agree with that. I think that if you want to keep these flavors really potent and really present, stirring it will allow a lot of those notes to work in kind of the best expression. And I'm tasting it as I go. Not just to see temperature, although temperature is a factor in this, but I'm looking for the kind of the perfect balancing point of when the dilution kind of yields. You still always get the flavors, but there's always that kind of moment when you taste. And if you're making it over like an ice cube and this is to pour on the rocks, I would always do it a little bit before, because you're going to hit an added dilution to the ice after it sits in there. But I want this to be perfect, because the idea is that the second that you put this into the glass and you present it to the guests, you want to have the least amount of time for the drink to devolve. So as Lane was doing, which I am not, you want to keep your martini glasses in the fridge or in a freezer to keep it temp, because with that transference of energy, when you're pouring the cold into the warm, it diffuses out and you lose a little bit of temperature. And when people say they want something extra cold, typically what I do is I ask if they don't mind me taking a little bit longer, and I'll put the cocktail in the freezer a little bit, because I don't want it to be extra dilute, because then I feel like the integrity of that drink's going to be gone. So we will do into 2 glasses this martini, and in 1 glass I'm going to do one of my favorites called you can call it whatever you want, but this is referred to as an FDR, which is I would normally add this to the mixing glass, but since I was making 2, I didn't. But it's basically your standard 2-to-1 martini, and you do a bar spoon or a teaspoon of olive brine. And I think this is a really fun way of getting a little extra salinity and a little extra balance. I like the oiliness of olive brine, especially when you use like a thicker one, like Beau Castelvetrano olive brine, I think works really nicely in this. And then the other option that I really like is sometimes Beau likes to call it Dusty Martini. When you were texting me about it, I had no idea what you were talking about. But also called a smoked martini or a smoky martini. But basically it's the same concept, but you rinse the glass or add a little bit of peated scotch. So that also plays with the salinity that's going on in the kind of naturally, or instead of the salinity of an olive brine, you're adding kind of an affect of that with the Islay Scotch. And then you garnish both with olives, Beau, just so you can see this. But like, if you don't have these at home, you can get these at any local clothing store. It's a little tiny clothespin. I don't know if any of you, I mean, it's been a while since Beau's made a drink, but man.
Oh.
When you have a Beau du Bois
wow.
cocktail, the garnish can never be in the drink itself. It's always got to be suspended above.
The clothespin?
With the clothespin. Yeah.
Claire, don't help him.
I'm sorry.
He's got enough momentum right now.
I don't need any help, Beau. Don't need any help.
Cut him off.
That
Oh
was
my
like
God.
bedtime stories with Dave Purcell. That was I feel like I'm ready for sleep now. That was beautiful.
Yeah. No, it
Oh,
was
Ryan.
It was very beautiful and
You do me honor by saying that, but Ryan, listen, you're always ready for bed. We know this.
I lived with him. I do know this.
I'm just glad that I'm not the only one that gets texts from Beau, and I also have no idea what the hell he's saying to me.
Oh, no, the best, Beau, actually, it's funny, like, I don't get a lot of texts, but all of a sudden he just starts calling, and I'm like, I don't know what he has to say to me that he couldn't say to me in a text message, but, you know, he...
Oh, you're the worst. I love phone calls.
Oh, no, seriously. I
enjoy them
I'm a phone
too.
caller.
No, Beau's a caller.
I'm a caller. Absolutely.
He's got to get in that.
I appreciate you. It's
Oh,
because we're from
thank
the
you.
Midwest.
There we go.
Claire,
exactly.
Oh, God, here we go.
Claire, I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's
Claire,
Claire,
the check is in the mail, Claire. All right. Thank you, Dave. Dave, that was eloquent. It was educational, and
It was sexy.
I'll say it. That was definitely sexy, of course.
Right.
And
ever since I watched you talk about the Playa Fortuna, I have just been in awe of black shirts, as you noticed that I went into uniform with this, and talks about honesty, you know, and your heritage.
That got real quick.
I literally heard cricket.
Well, I'm gonna sit down and drink this. I don't know if anybody knows this too, but it's the only pour spout that I have that fits the Bombay Sapphire. It's a wolf.
It's a wolf.
Yeah.
I have a deer.
I mean, you don't need to do right.
It's good for aeration. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, Dave,
you do know you can pour out of a bottle without a pour spout, right? I mean, it's doable.
Ryan, don't jump ahead. That's for the next Zoom. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. That's on me.
This is just at-home cocktail.
You can make a martini without strawberries in it too.
Whoa.
Okay.
Oh God! Wow.
Brian.
All right. Well, before this gets too out of control, let's go over to Claire and take the victory lap with her in her preferred martini and join her with her preferred drink. Claire, what you got?
All right. Well, you said Dave was eloquent, and I'm probably going to be the opposite of that, but that's kind of my style, which is fine. So the
Are you saying I wasn't fun?
Kentuckians and the French. Just listen to me right away, right? The Kentuckians and the French, we have a lot in common, right? The French actually settled a lot of Kentucky, and Louisville is named after King Louis. We have a town named after Versailles that we call Versailles. So we tend to pay a lot of respect to the French.
Our former national Grey Goose ambassador, Julien Lafond, is basically from French Kentucky. So
That's what I'm saying. We appreciate our limestone. We got that from you.
He's from a village of like 12 people. So that's basically Kentucky.
That's what I was saying. We appreciate limestone like you guys did. Like that's a limestone in Kentucky that makes good bourbon. It makes good vodka too. So I am, y'all are probably going to scoff at my martini a little bit, but I think the whole point of this is like, it comes down to preference. And so I'm starting with 2 ounces of Grey Goose. And then I'm going to do 1/2 ounce of, all right, you're going to help me, Lane. I feel like I've always said, and I'm from Kentucky, so I think I have the coverall that I can say I pronounce everything wrong. How do you pronounce this label?
So in France it's Noilly Prat, but I say Noilly Prat.
Noilly Prat. Got it.
Noilly Prat.
I think that's important to note because I have no idea. So I'm gonna do half ounce of that. And I think,
Saint Germain.
you know, I think what Selena was touching at, like, and Beau, like the taboo of vermouth is that there's this like weird idea that if you add vermouth, it makes it sweet. And it's a thing we've been fighting as bartenders for forever of like, we want our drink not too sweet, whatever, you know. And Northern Pride in particular adds herbaceousness and a salinity, like we said, and an acidity that like really like cuts and makes it and adds like a deeper level to the cocktail. I'm also gonna add a half ounce of Fino sherry because I have a salty palate, and I poured it in my martini glass, guys.
Get crazy,
It's
girl.
really hard doing it while we talk. And I'm building in a mini martini shaker, but because it reminds me of my birthday, which I spend at Jones every year, and I drink dirty vodka martinis until I don't remember drinking dirty vodka martinis. Not
They were Grey Goose. They were dirty Grey Goose martinis.
drinking.
Don't shortchange me here, Claire.
Yeah. And then I'm adding a half ounce of olive brine because I like things a little salty. So if you've never been to Jones, everyone's going to think I work at Jones. Guys, I work at Hippo in Highland Park. I swear, I don't work at Jones at all. I just enjoy it a lot. And I'm going to add some ice in it, and I'm going to give it a shake because I like mine shaken. I like the ice chips. I like the texture that shaking gives it because I like my martinis to last over time. Like, if I drink them too fast, I'm done for the evening. And so I wanted to, I'm okay with it getting a little bit extra diluted while I sit. And I'm okay with taking a long time to drink it and like tasting the change in flavor.
And then is anybody else like Claire and I big sidecar enthusiasts? Like Musso and Frank's and Jones are two like iconic LA properties that either give you the shaker or like give you the sidecar on ice, and that is my shit.
Yeah. No, listen. I'm never gonna be upset by extra cocktails. Okay, if you're gonna serve me my cocktail and then be like, hey, if you're a sicko like me, here's the rest of it. Like, you're already number one in my book immediately.
So
you have my trust.
And I think that's what like we were all saying earlier. Like, it's a personal drink, and like enjoy it how you want it. And I want pickles and olive brine and sherry and vermouth and some French box with some lemon.
Well, God, Claire, I think you just shut the whole game down. That sounds incredible. I mean, Dave waxing on about ice surface areas and Ryan and his obsession with strawberries. But yes, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Claire betting cleanup.
Yep, that was fantastic, Claire. I think exactly this whole thing is about making the martini that you want. That's the best martini in the world, and understanding how to communicate that. And hopefully this episode has been able to educate you on that, as well as learn a few things about Grey Goose, about Bombay Sapphire, Noli Prat as well. But what we wanted to do was create a culture that was just based around getting the exact martini that they wanted. And that came to just asking every single question that came to mind. And so first it was about training the staff at the Meadowwood what a martini was, what is extra dry, what is dry, what is wet, what is classic, what does that all mean, so that they could ask the right questions and put that martini in front of that guest seamlessly. And that's what was important. And if by chance, through that questionnaire, the guests learned something about how to order a martini a little bit more specifically, then we knew that the next time they had a martini that wasn't at a place like Puesto or the restaurant at Meadowwood or that mom and pop place in LA, the Nomad, we knew that they were thinking about us and where they learned that culture. And they also got to kind of like rib their friends and say, hey, you're ordering that wrong. If you want like no vermouth or you want more vermouth or extra, they were educating their friends about the correct terminology. And so what I aim to do is always, I want you as the guest to think about me while you're having somebody else's cocktails. That's the drill, including Dave Purcell. Guys, thank you very much for doing this. This is incredible.
Not so intimidating, is it anymore? So I'd like to take this time to thank my martini experts, my dear industry friends, Selena and Claire, for making us believe in dirty martini love again. Ryan Strawberry Fields Wainwright for his lesson in martini mixology. And of course, Lane for teaching us all about vermouth, the 50-50 martini, and why we should love it and where we should store vermouth. And of course, David Purcell for his thesis on ice and adhesion. But as you can see, I'm getting a little low. So all I hope is that the next time you have a martini, you think about us. I'm going in for a second lap, so until next time.